Here are 10 cheap beginner sports bikes that perform like high-end models. Number 10, Aprilia RS660. If there's a sports bike on this list that turns heads before you even hit the starter button, it's the Aprilia RS660. This bike looks exotic, feels exotic, and somehow still manages to be friendly enough for beginners who are serious about learning the right way. It's not the cheapest or the simplest option, but it might be the most special, and that counts for something. At the heart of the RS660 is a 659cc parallel twin that produces 100 horsepower. But don't let the twin cylinder setup fool you. This engine feels way more alive than the average twin in this class. It's got a broad spread of torque, so it's happy to cruise at lower RPMs, but it also pulls hard up top, something you don't always get from beginner-friendly bikes. That makes it forgiving when you need it to be, but still exciting when you're ready to push. In terms of tech, Aprilia loaded this bike with ride modes, traction control, cornering ABS, a quick shifter, and wheelie control. Basically anything you think a motorcycle should have. For a new rider, that might sound overwhelming, but in practice, it helps build confidence. The bikes can be tamed down while you're still learning, and you can unlock more performance as your skills grow. It's like having training wheels that quietly disappear when you don't need them anymore. Handling-wise, the RS660 is razor sharp. It's light, easy to handle, and the suspension feels planted without being punishing. Whether you're cruising around town or riding on curvy mountain roads, it makes every corner feel like an invitation. Even slow-speed maneuvers, which can be intimidating for beginners, feel manageable thanks to the balanced weight and narrow frame. At $11,500, the RS660 is definitely an investment. But you're not just paying for specs. You're buying into Italian craftsmanship, cutting-edge tech, and a bike that can take you from beginner to expert without ever feeling like you've outgrown it. Number 9, Kawasaki Ninja ZX6R. In terms of performance, the Kawasaki Ninja ZX6R is undoubtedly the best motorcycle on this list. This motorcycle is as close as you can get to a full-blooded super sport while still being manageable enough for a determined beginner. It's not a casual learner bike, but if you're ready to take riding seriously from day one, this is the machine that will push you to get better every time you swing a leg over. The ZX6R runs on a 636cc incline-4 engine that generates up to 122 horsepower, which already tells you what kind of experience you're in for. Inline-4 engines are all about revs, and this one sings all the way to redline. At lower RPMs, it's tame enough for city riding, but once you fire it up, you're getting a genuine taste of super sport performance. What's impressive about the ZX6R is that it doesn't just focus on power. Kawasaki built this bike to handle just as well. The fully adjustable suspension, strong brakes, and sport-tuned chassis make it feel planted and confident even when you're riding at your limit. It's a bike that allows for small mistakes, but also lets you feel every bit of improvement as your cornering, braking, and throttle control get better. Even the ergonomics strike a decent balance. It is super aggressive, but you can still ride safely on it without getting scared. For a price of $11,400, the ZX6R offers a ton of performance for the price. It's not the easiest bike for beginners, but for someone who's ready to take the time to learn properly, it's a ticket to serious riding skills and a machine you won't outgrow for years. If you want to start your sports bike journey on something that's fast, sharp, and genuinely capable, this is the ultimate beginner sport bike that performs like a high-end model. Number 8, Honda CBR 650R. The CBR 650R occupies a sweet spot that's surprisingly hard to find. It's a full-fairing sport bike with a proper inline-4 engine that's still manageable for newer riders. If you're someone who's always loved the sound and feel of a classic 4-cylinder sport bike, the CBR 650R lets you have the experience without jumping straight into leader bike chaos. The bike features a 649cc inline-4 engine that generates 95 horsepower. This engine allows the bike to rev smoothly, build power progressively, and sound absolutely glorious when you twist the throttle. Compared to the punchier, low-end torque of other bikes on this list, this engine loves to rev, which is fantastic if you're the type who enjoys using the full range of the tachometer. But crucially, it's not peaky or temperamental, so beginners won't feel like they're riding a ticking time bomb. Comfort-wise, Honda found a great balance between sporty and practical. The clip-ons are low enough to give you that crotched sport bike feel, but not so low that it destroys your back or wrists on longer rides. The seat height is manageable for most riders, and overall, the bike's weight is balanced in a way that makes low-speed handling less intimidating than you'd expect from a 650cc sport bike. The CBR 650R also has Honda's signature refinement baked into every part of the ride. The throttle response is silky smooth, the gearbox feels like butter, and even the suspension, while not track-level aggressive, offers a confidence-inspiring mix of comfort and control. Add in ABS and Honda's usual reliability, And you've got a bike that feels polished enough to arguably be the most powerful bike on the list. As for the price, it's a bit high at $9,900, but if you want that inline 4 experience without going full super sport, it's worth every penny. Number 7. Yamaha YZF R7. The YZF R7 is an interesting one because it doesn't just slot into the beginner bike world the way something like a Ninja 400 does, but it's absolutely a bike that ambitious beginners can handle, especially if they know they want to dive into the sport bike scene head first. Underneath the aggressive bodywork, the YZF R7 is running the same 689cc parallel twin engine from the MT-07. This powertrain generates up to 72 horsepower, making the bike considerably easy to handle. The power is there when you want it, but it doesn't hit like a sledgehammer. It's a bike that rewards smooth inputs, and for a beginner learning the ropes, that's a big deal. Yamaha also gave the YZF R7 a sporty suspension, upgraded brakes, and a more aggressive riding position than the MT-07, so even though the engine is beginner-friendly, the chassis is ready for serious riding. Visually, it's pure R-Series DNA. Low, sleek, and unmistakably Yamaha. You could park this thing next to an R1 that wouldn't look out of place, which is a big win for anyone who wants their first sport bike to look the part. And thanks to its relatively light weight, it's not intimidating to move around at low speeds, something every beginner appreciates when they're still getting comfortable with slow maneuvers. But at $9,200, the R7 isn't exactly cheap, but you're paying for a bike that feels special right out of the gate. This isn't just a starter bike. It's something you can learn on, sharpen your skills with, and still enjoy even after years of riding. If you're looking for a beginner-friendly sport bike that's a step above entry level, the R7 is absolutely worth the money. Number 6. Kawasaki Ninja 650. The Ninja 650 is where Kawasaki starts blending practicality and performance into one seriously well-rounded package. If you're a newer rider who doesn't want to feel boxed into a starter bike, this one's worth a hard look. The Ninja 650 comes with a 649cc parallel twin engine that generates 49.5 horsepower, giving the motorcycle enough power to grow with you, but it still delivers it in a way that won't overwhelm beginners. What's nice about the Ninja 650 is its versatility. It's sporty enough to have fun with, but it's comfortable enough to commute on every day. The riding position leans sporty, but the bars are raised just a bit to keep the strain off your wrists. That makes this a bike you can comfortably ride for hours, whether you're heading to work or out on a weekend ride with friends. Kawasaki gave the Ninja 650 some serious tech upgrades in recent years too. You get a TFT display, smartphone connectivity, and of course ABS is standard. For beginners who want a bike that feels modern and gives you some of those big bike features right away, this is a major win. But here's the part that really makes the Ninja 650 stand out. It's easy to handle when you need it to be, but capable enough to keep you entertained for years. It's one of those bikes that can take you from your first ride all the way to your first track day without feeling like you've outgrown it halfway through. And the parallel twin engine, while peppy, is easy to manage, so you don't have to be a pro to enjoy what this bike can do. All these features make the bike a bit pricey, around $8,000. Number 5. Honda CBR 500R. Unlike the previous bikes we've looked at, the Honda CBR 500R is more of a middleweight than a lightweight motorcycle. However, don't let the bigger size engine scare you off. This bike has a friendly personality wrapped in a sharper, sportier package, which is classic Honda. They have a habit of making bikes that work for almost everyone, and the CBR 500R is a good example of that. Power comes from a 471cc parallel twin engine that generates 47 horsepower. You can tell that this engine was tuned to be approachable rather than aggressive. The power delivery is linear, which means no unexpected surges or sketchy throttle response. It's the kind of bike that forgives your mistakes, so you can focus on perfecting your shifting, braking, and cornering instead of constantly worrying about getting it wrong. Where the CBR 500R really shines, though, is in comfort and versatility. The seat is low enough to give shorter riders confidence at stoplights, and the clip-on handlebars are positioned in such a way that makes you feel like you're riding a proper sports bike, but not so low that your back and wrists begin to ache after 30 minutes. Styling-wise, Honda gave the CBR 500R aggressive fairings and some nice LED lighting, so it looks faster than it actually is, which isn't a bad thing for beginners who want a sharp-looking bike without the risk that comes with too much power. Plus, you get ABS standard, which is always a welcome feature when you're still building your confidence on the road. For a price of $7,300, the CBR 500R is not the cheapest option in the beginner class, but you're paying for Honda's reputation for reliability, along with a bike that can easily grow with you. Number 4. KTM RC390. The KTM RC390 is a bike that constantly dares you to push harder. It's got that sharp, aggressive styling KTM is known for. The bike's powertrain is a 373cc single-cylinder engine that generates 42.9 horsepower, surprisingly lively for its size. What really makes the RC390 special, though, is its weight, or lack of it. At just around 370 pounds, this bike is crazy light, which makes it super nimble whether you're carving on the highway or squeezing through traffic. That low weight also means it's easier to handle at low speeds, so you won't feel like you're wrestling the bike during parking lot practice. Despite its aggressive stance, the RC390 is still friendly enough for beginners, especially if you're the kind of rider who wants something you can grow into. It's quick enough to keep you entertained long after you've mastered the basics, but not so powerful that it's going to punish every little mistake you make. Another bonus? KTM gave the RC390 upside-down forks, a decent braking setup, and even some electronic assists like ABS, features that make it feel more premium than its $5,900 price tag would suggest. In short, if you want your first sports bike to feel more like a scaled-down race bike than a gentle beginner machine, the RC390 is calling your name. Number 3, CFMoto 450SS. If you haven't heard much about CFMoto yet, that's probably going to change soon. This brand has been steadily carving out a spot in the entry-level sport bike world, and the 450SS is their most serious effort so far. For a beginner who wants something that looks exotic, comes loaded with features, and doesn't blow past the $6,000 mark, then you should definitely check out this bike. The 450SS runs on a 449cc parallel twin that generates 50 horsepower. Even better, the bike revs to 10,000 RPM, which gives it a surprisingly sporty feel for a bike in this class. Power delivery is friendly enough for new riders, but it's got enough punch to keep things exciting once you gain more experience. CFMoto even gave it a quick shifter, something you almost never see on bikes in this price range, making shifts smoother and faster. Perfect for anyone wanting to get that sport bike feel right away. Not just that, the 450SS features sharp fairings, an aggressive design, and a single-sided exhaust tucked under its belly, making the bike look much more expensive than it really is. If someone told you it was some limited edition European model, you might believe them at first glance. But it's not just about looks. CFMoto built this thing to handle well too. The trellis frame keeps it light and easy to handle, and the Brembo brakes give it better stopping power than you'd expect at this price. Add in a slipper clutch to keep things smooth on aggressive downshifts, and the 450SS starts feeling like a much more premium machine than its $5,500 price tag suggests. Number 2, Kawasaki Ninja 400. Most experts recommend the Kawasaki Ninja 400 to beginners, and it's pretty simple to see why. This bike walks a fine line between being beginner-friendly and seriously capable, which is a tricky balance most manufacturers struggle with. The powertrain of the Ninja is a 399cc parallel twin engine that produces 45 horsepower. One of the first things you'll notice when you ride it is just how smooth everything feels. Throttle response is predictable without being boring, and the power curve builds up in a way that never feels intimidating, even if you're still getting comfortable with shifting and cornering. But don't mistake smooth for slow. This thing will happily cruise at highway speeds all day and still has enough grunt to keep up if your buddies are riding bigger bikes. Another reason the Ninja 400 works so well for beginners is the ergonomics. Kawasaki designed it with a bit more upright posture compared to a full-on Super Sport, so you're not stuck in an aggressive racing crouch. That makes it comfortable enough for daily commutes or longer rides, while still giving you that sporty feel when you're leaning into curves. And while a lot of beginner bikes sacrifice brakes and suspension to hit a lower price point, Kawasaki wasn't cheap with this bike. The Ninja 400's front brake setup has enough bite to inspire confidence, and the ABS is a nice safety net if you accidentally grab a little too much lever. The suspension is basic, sure, but it's well-tuned for street riding, which is exactly what you want in a starter sports bike. As for price, the Ninja 400 costs around $5,300, making it very affordable. Number 1, Suzuki GSX 250R. Let's be honest, if you're new to riding and looking for your first sports bike, it's easy to get caught up in the flashy, high-horsepower monsters that everyone's talking about. But the Suzuki GSX 250R is a bit different from other bikes, and that's exactly why it deserves attention. Unlike most sports bikes, the GSX 250R is pretty easy to handle. With a 248cc parallel twin engine that produces 24.7 horsepower, this bike doesn't overwhelm you with power, but it's far from boring. The throttle is smooth, the clutch is forgiving, and the power delivery feels predictable. Perfect if you're still learning how to finesse your right hand. Suzuki gave the GSX 250R a sleek, full-fairing design that pulls from its bigger GSX-R siblings. So, you're still getting that sport bike look without the intimidating performance. The riding position leans slightly forward, giving you a sporty feel without punishing your back and wrists. Another win for anyone who's going to be spending more than 30 minutes in the saddle. On the practical side, the bike is cheap to insure, sips gas like a scooter, and even though it's lightweight at just around 400 pounds, it feels stable at highway speeds. Also, the price is $4,700, so you're basically getting a bike that looks the part, handles well, and won't scare the life out of you the first time you twist the throttle. For new riders who want to ease into the sport bike world without emptying their wallets, the GSX 250R just makes sense. But which one of these motorcycles would you give a try? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more amazing videos of your favorite motorcycles.